G'day legends, Blake here with another video, and Celestial Pearl Danios, whilst also being one of my absolute favourite fish, have really helped me over the past few years to keep the lights on here in the fish room, whilst the economy has been a little bit up and down, shall we say. So if you're looking to get into the Celestial Pearl Danio game, or if you've got some and they're just not being that successful in breeding, in this video I'm going to run you through all my secrets to maximise your success with this awesome little fish. Let's jump straight into it. So to get started breeding CPDs, it's important to first of all select good genetics. CPDs, unfortunately these days, you can find some that look really misshapen, have bent spines, big old humps on the front of them. So spend a good amount of time at your local fish store or breeder and make sure you're selecting great looking fish. But if they're displaying fish behavior that's good, they're swimming around nicely and without any sort of hampering, then you're good to select a group of 10 or more, which is what I recommend if you want to ever see them. Unfortunately, these are a really shy fish, and I find especially in groups under 10, and especially in community tanks or display tanks, they're always just going to be hiding up the back scared. If they're not in a decent group, 10, 15, even better. The next thing to understand is the water parameters that are going to be best for optimal breeding. So a pH of 6.8 to 7. If you have really hard pH, the fish will probably be fine, but their eggs will calcify too quickly to hatch. So they'll go really hard and the fry won't be able to break out of it. So you might be seeing eggs, but they're not hatching, and that's what's going on there. But if you keep them in a fairly neutral pH, that's going to be good. And a temperature of about 22 degrees Celsius or 72 degrees Fahrenheit I find works best, but they're pretty temperature tolerant, so you can go pretty much plus or minus 4 each side. However, as always, it's important to chase consistency over specificity. So don't go chasing a single number. If you're within a few either side, then these fish especially are going to be hardy enough that it's not really going to matter. It's better to give them stable parameters so that they're not constantly stressed out adjusting to a new condition. Next thing's going to be diet, and of course we want to give them a great diet so that they can use their excess fat and protein to make heaps of eggs and heaps of milk so we can have plenty of baby CPDs. So give them a nice high protein diet, and the good thing is that CPDs never really get to a size that they won't enjoy a freshly hatched baby brine shrimp. Even adult CPDs are ravenous for newly hatched baby brine, so I always try and feed them at least every day of baby brine shrimp, though they will readily take to pellets and flakes, and they'll eat pretty much anything. I find softer pellets work best though. However, if you are feeding something for a period of time and you're just not having that many eggs, it might be worth varying up the diet to something a bit more high quality perhaps, and then try that out, see if it changes, and then you can feed that from that point on. So now that we've got that underway, let's talk about setting up the tank for these guys. So if you just want to keep the fish to enjoy them, tanks like these with heaps of live plants, and they don't have to be complicated live plants, it can just be mosses and java ferns and things like that, are going to be great. The more plants and hiding places you provide, the more likely you are to see your fish, which might sound counterintuitive, but in actual fact, they're going to realize that they have heaps of hiding places available, so they'll be more likely to come out because in the case of danger, they know exactly where to go. Whereas if the tank is fairly bare bones, then they're not really likely to come and greet you because it's just too high risk for them, especially being very low on the food chain. But if breeding CPDs is the name of the game, a tank like this is going to suit you perfectly. This tank here is 5 gallons or 20 liters, and it's set up perfect to what I would recommend to breed a maximum amount of CPDs. I'll put a trio in here, up to about 6 fish in here. Yes, it's less than that 10 number that I mentioned earlier, but 10 CPDs in a tank like this, although it would probably still work, it just feels excessive to me, and I'd rather set up multiple of these with trios or 6s and just go with it that way. Setup is really simple. I am going to clean up this debris in here, but that's because I've let this tank just kind of mature over the past month or so. That's why there's a bit of algae, that's why things are just moving. There's a bit of nature in there, a bit of life. So that's what I like to see. I don't like to put them in a brand new tank from day one. Simple sponge filter works best, I find, especially over any pumps with impellers. So that's hang-on bags, that's canisters, and that is internal filters. That's because those impellers are just going to provide more flow and be more likely to suck up eggs, shred them up, and all that sort of stuff. I just like the aeration that a sponge filter provides, simplicity, and they're not going to really suck too many eggs up. Last thing is lighting. You can see there's not a bunch of lighting. It's literally just the edge of one of these eBay lights, and CPDs like it pretty dull. They don't really want a heap of light on there that's just going to make them scared and more worried than anything. We want to get them as comfortable as they can be in a bare bones setup like this. So we have our fish, we know about their diet and water parameters, we've got our tank set up and it's been running for the past month or so, getting seeded, and it's nice and mature, ready for this whole thing to happen. How do we select males and females from our batch? Let's say we got 12 or so and we're going to split that into 4 trios. Let me show you how to tell the difference. Okay, so here are some of my adult CPDs, which should be pretty easy to tell the difference, males or females. So the males are going to be a bit more slender, but have beautiful, bright crimson red finnage, like this guy here in the center of screen. He's hanging out by the moss, waiting for a nice lady. And then there's 2 ladies there with him that their fins are more of an orangish, maybe even an opaque sort of color. However, their body is far more rounded, and their belly, in some cases, you can even see is plump, full of eggs. So that's the difference there. Female, like that one there, more orangish fins, a bit more clear. Male, hanging out, waiting for a lovely lady there. Dark body, and more red fins. So hopefully that is pretty clear. Okay, so we've got our colony split. The tanks are running perfectly fine there, and they're all nice and comfortable, so it's time to start collecting some eggs. And how are we going to do that? Because CPD eggs are plentiful and pretty small, so if your vision is anything less than 20/20, it's going to be pretty difficult to get in there by hand and collect them out, and certainly you're not going to collect them up quicker than the CPDs are going to eat them. So luckily we're not going to do that. We're going to automate this process, and the first thing I'm going to recommend that you purchase is evident here in shot probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and that is a hang-on breeder box. Really simple thing, just a big plastic box that sits on the outside of your tank. You connect them up to an air line, to an air pump, and then the way that it works is air moving up here draws water into the box, through, and then out this outflow here. It will come with a little plastic gate, and I recommend swapping that out just for some coarse sponge so that our eggs don't go flying out the end, defeating the whole purpose of this. So we're going to use this whole box, and I find that it's just a perfect contraption to hatch up thousands of baby CPDs. However, one little modification, just take the airline component off the end. Keep this plastic grey tube because it's going to work for either of the 2 options that I'm going to show you to collect your eggs. By the way, it doesn't matter what brand. I've found this process will work with pretty much any brand. I'm yet to find one that doesn't fit, except obviously the ones that are in tank. Make sure they're a hang-on breeder box that are going to hang outside of the tank. Okay, and then for what's going to go inside your tank, the easiest thing and the obvious thing for me to recommend is this here. This is a kit that I 3D print and sell on Etsy. There'll be a link in the description below. However, don't worry, this isn't a thinly veiled marketing ploy from my part. I will also show you how to do this in a DIY option that will generate me absolutely 0 sales. So yeah, this is just a box that I sell and ship worldwide to people. It's got a simple grate on the top, and I also provide these components here. So this here is a threaded elbow. You screw that in, and when I send it to you, all of this is assembled. All you have to do is screw that on. Then this uplift tube goes on there, and there'll also be an airline hose in here. Let's just make it now very quickly. So what I do at home is I just put a little hole in there, I thread in this 4mm airline tube here, just like so, go along and attach it to this barb fitting, just like that. And there you go. So this is what will arrive if you buy the kit. The box and this. Thread that on. Connect your airline into the 4mm barb. That will go to your air pump. Try and get it as vertical as you can. And then you go along and get your hang-on breeder box. I'll just take off this part because it's a bit too big to put in the shot. So this is the uplift for your hang-on breeder box, and it just slots directly over the uplift there. So then you have a box which is connected all the way up to this uplift, and this goes into your hang-on breeder box as designed. After that, it's just a matter of putting some moss on this sort of grate here. I like to super glue a little bit down, or maybe put a little rock on the top just to weight it down. I find that simple Java moss works the best. Christmas moss has also worked fine. Sawasatang and flame moss I find get a bit too bushy, and maybe after a period of time, if you don't maintain them, they stop working as effectively. But these are great little kits, and I myself am running like 10 of these at any given time. Basically the same amount of hang-on breeder boxes. It really depends. Also, it doesn't matter where you are in the world if you're not in Australia. I've shipped these now to New Zealand, Canada, United States, heaps of the UK. I've never really had any trouble shipping anywhere. It does take a little time because Australia is in the bottom of the world. But yeah, if you buy it, I'll try and get it to you as quickly as possible. If there are any issues, then I try and rectify those fairly quickly and effortlessly where I can. But let's just say you don't want to go down that route and you want to DIY it yourself. Well, let me show you how exactly you'd go about that. And I'd recommend starting with a normal soft drink or soda bottle here. I've just simply cut it. This provides a great little funnel for us to use. And we're going to add to that with some of this fly screen. So this is what goes in windows and doors to keep insects out. I'm not sure if this is available in every country. I imagine insects are a problem in most countries, definitely here in Australia. But we're going to get some of that. We're going to stuff it down, make a little conical sort of a shape, and then get your hot glue gun and hot glue this in place. Now the good thing about using this, and again, I'm not sure about different countries if they have different size lids or not, but here in Australia, a 15mm thread, which is the same that I use, fits pretty snugly into the end. So again, just fill that up with hot glue or silicone, and you can fix that in place like that. From there, setting it up would be relatively the same. All you'd need is an extra little length of the 13mm irrigation tube, another 13mm elbow, and then same again, you have the other uplift with the 13mm irrigation tube and a 4mm airline going into that. It provides much the same, but obviously if you can help me keep the lights on in the fish room, that does help, and that link will be in the description below, but I understand there's a need for a DIY option as well. And then this is how it should look when it's all assembled. That one's probably got a bit too much moss in there. I should probably pull out some of that. And then when I do, I just often chuck it in the top there as a bit of extra hiding space for the fry, maybe some little infusoria and stuff like that. But that's what it looks like fully assembled, and you should set it up with a little tap here. Then when the fish are in there breeding, you just simply come along, turn the tap on. You can leave it on 24/7 if you like, but it's a bit noisy, so I only turn it on for a couple of minutes every day. And then heaps of little CPD eggs are gonna go in there. And let's see if we can pick it up. Can you see all those little fry in there? If not, I'll grab the macro camera out and we'll get some macro shots of those guys. But in no time, you'll have fry in this box here. So the process will be getting the fish in, setting up this contraption, whether it's the DIY or the 3D printed option, putting the moss in. I like to let them settle in for a day or so, but then the following day, turn the air on just for sort of 10 minutes at a time and let it run. You don't need to run it 24/7. I find that it's a bit noisy. So personally, I just come in, turn all the taps on, go and feed the rest of the fish room. And then by that time I come back and turn all the taps off and then see what we get. You should visibly see eggs going into the hang-on breeder boxes, and then from that, you'll know that you should have hatchlings within sort of the next 2 or 3 days. Hatchlings, to see them, make sure you check the side of the breeder box. They'll be basically stuck to it, hanging there, and just clinging to it, which is kind of cool to see. But then after they sort of hatch out and cling and hang out for a day or so, Within another 2 or 3 days after that, you'll start to see them free swimming. Most of the time, they'll be sort of in the second half near the outflow there, but hopefully not going through that if you've got a fine enough sponge in there. So at that point, you definitely want to get some nice live foods going in there just to make sure that they're getting their first few feedings in and make sure that they're not starving to death once they've consumed their egg sac. I like to use things like vinegar eels right here. Microworms are a great option too because in the case of the vinegar eels, they're very small and they stay up in the water column. Microworms, they stay in the water column for quite a while, but they eventually do sink to the bottom, so don't feed a whole bunch at once. If you can, it's better to feed smaller amounts multiple times per day. It will be quite a few weeks before they're able to eat a freshly hatched baby brine shrimp, although once they have had live foods for three days or so, then I do start to introduce some powder food. Just make sure that it's really, really fine powder because they're very small fish which have very small mouths, so they're not able to eat even some of the less fine powders. And the other thing with feeding powder food is if you're continuing to collect new eggs every single day, any of that uneaten powderized food can come into contact with the new eggs and fungus them up. So if you can, it's best to feed as clean as possible whilst they're in the breeder box here. Then after a week, maybe 2 weeks if I'm lazy, I'll take the entire breeder box off and empty it into another 5-gallon or 20-litre aquarium. And that tank I'll use just to raise batches and batches of CPDs. I'll put maybe 2 months worth of breeder boxes in those tanks and raise up a decent sized colony. After that, within 4 or 5 months, they'll be a good size so that you can take them to your local fish store or your local fish club, or just distribute them to your friends, which is never a bad idea because you might need a backup colony here or there. So it is good to put them in the hands of others that you'll know where they are in case you ever need them back. And really quickly, because of these flickering lights, this is an example of the smaller tank once it's fully set up. The breeder box, some moss. That leaf is not really supposed to be there. I'll move that in a minute. I've got a bunch of emerald rasboras in here, but they breed in the exact same way, and a medium-sized breeder box. So yeah, as you can see, quite a snug fit, but still holds a good volume of water and definitely capable of having some fry in there. There is fry in the box, just can't really see them right now. So there you go guys, that's how I breed CPDs. It's a super rewarding process, and if you've never bred egg scattering fish, it's not something to be daunted by. I definitely recommend it. If you do choose to support me by purchasing from Etsy, then it certainly goes a long way and I really do appreciate that. If not, then I wish you all the best of success with breeding your CPDs, and hopefully we can just make more of these fish for the hobby to enjoy. So if the video was helpful, it always helps me to smash like, hit subscribe and all that fun stuff. If you like my content, I'll put another video right there for you to enjoy. Other than that, I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.